open in your house, or is that just a background?
It's a virtual background with the green
Oh,
screen.
okay. Well, I was going to say, if you
So,
get warm, just turn your air conditioner on and leave your window open.
my green
And
screen's really not wide enough. See, you can see
uh,
part of my room, I think.
oh, okay,
I've got another one I'll show you here. It's kind of neat if I can find it.
okay.
That's me driving through the hole in the wall.
That's
Dear,
it.
dear, I'm trying to look up how to turn the mute on and off on your iPad mini. So if I find it, I'll let you know.
And once we get started, I'll be able to mute everyone, Lisa.
Okay. Yeah, she was trying to have to turn it off, and I was trying to help her, but that'll work better.
Does anyone have any news or announcements while we wait for everyone to join in?
Is Joan Schoffer on?
I don't see Joan yet.
Anyhow, in the Chamber of Commerce, Little Rock Chamber of Commerce leadership in Arkansas, her picture's in there. I don't know if I can show it to you here or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that there? No, here, this side.
Okay, great.
The 15th leadership class, the 2020 graduates. So nice picture of her and the description of her job.
Wonderful. Thank you, Roger. Joan's also been hard at work getting her new restaurant going downtown. So if you haven't had a chance to stop by there, it's in the old Blackwoods Grill. It's the new Italian, we won't call it the Italian, not Italian, Irish restaurant. Past noon, I'll go ahead and introduce Brett, although he needs no introduction, and then we'll let him get started with his presentation. I appreciate everyone being here today. It's always odd to meet on Zoom. I'm definitely ready to get back in person, but I appreciate everyone accommodating us and getting online and on your cell phones and trying to move forward with our Rotary year. So Brett is the CEO of Conway Corporation, a company that provides electric, water, wastewater, cable, internet, telephone, and security services to the city of Conway, Arkansas. Brett has been with Conway Corp for 22 years, first serving as the Chief Financial Officer and now as CEO. Brett holds a BBA in accounting and an MBA from the University of Central Arkansas and is a certified public accountant. He is recognized by the American Public Power Association as a certified public power manager. Brett serves on a number of boards. He serves on the board of the American Public Power Association, Arkansas One Call, Conway Development Corporation. He is the treasurer for the Mid-America Cable Television Association and is VP of Finance for the Arkansas Municipal Power Association. He enjoys being involved in his community and has served on several nonprofit boards, including United Way, Rotary International, Conway Area Chamber of Commerce, Salvation Army, Gideon's International, Boys and Girls Club, and Big Brothers and Big Sisters. Brett and his wife Sandra have a daughter, Caitlin, who is an elementary school teacher. They are active members of Second Baptist Church, where Brett serves as a deacon and teaches in the youth group. Thanks for coming to give us our economic report, Brett. I know we got canceled when COVID started, so you weren't able to do it in person, but we appreciate you working with us and doing it online today. And I'll turn it over to Brett and mute everyone else. So if you have a question, you'll have to unmute yourselves to ask Brett and wave at us like we're back in school.
Well, Courtney, thank you so much. It's an honor for me to be able to do this. In just a minute here, I've got a few slides to go through. It's a little strange to do this now. It's almost like we're in Bizarro Conway. You know, normally we're doing this right after we get the results. And so here we are in June. And so the natural question is well, what are things like now? And normally there wouldn't be, if we trending the same way, we would expect to see some of the same growth statistics that we've seen in the past. But obviously a few things have happened since then. So I'm going to hopefully provide some context that compares where we are as much as I can where we are today compared to what the results were at the end of the year. So anyway, with that, I'm gonna start sharing my screen here, see if this works. Um, all right, can everybody see that? See,
Yes.
it's a 69th annual. Okay, good. All right. Well, I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna start this slideshow here, and I'll just go through this. And again, if you have questions along the way, feel free to ask me. But it is our the 69th year to do this, and I talked to Roger a little bit, Roger Lewis, before I got started, and he actually did it for 21 years, um, and and I said, I'm not shooting for that. That's almost like Joe DiMaggio's, hitting consecutive game hitting streak. And he told me then that Thomas Wilson did it for 30 years. So I'm certainly not hoping to shoot for that. But I do want to thank Roger for his help and insight in putting this report together. And then Monica Reap, I don't know if Monica was able to join us. She has actually taken some vacation, some much needed and much deserved vacation. And so she was planning to connect with us from Florida, but I'm not sure that she was able to do that. So anyway, I want to thank Roger for his help and insight, and Monica for all of the behind the scenes heavy lifting that she did to pull all of this data together. So she pulled the data together and then actually prepared the report. So none of this could have happened without Roger's help and Monica's help. So I'll go through the report, and the first slide is really on gross domestic product, and really, that is just an indicator, kind of a snapshot in time of our national economy, the health of our national economy, and you can see there's been good growth from 2010 through 2019. Of 2009, there was a negative GDP coming out of the recession that we had then, but there was good growth through 2019. However, the first quarter of 2020, GDP is down 5%. And really all of that is pandemic COVID-19 related. So it's down 5%. And so just an indicator of where we are right now compared to where we were at the end of 2019. Um, and again, you know, at the end of 2019, things were trending very well and looking really good at the end of, or at the beginning of 2020. Unemployment rates were as low as they've been, or even lower than they had been since the Vietnam War. So 50 years it had been since employment rates had been as low as they are. And it was really interesting. The economy was humming along at a pretty good pace, and then of course COVID-19 hit, and we saw some dramatic decreases in employment. And so I was able to check and see where we are, where the unemployment rates were on a national level in May of 2020. So unemployment was up to 13.3% nationally at the end of May. Our state unemployment was up to 9.5%, and I was not able to find an estimate or a projection for Conway. No data on that yet that I could find. But if we compare Conway to the state of Arkansas and track that based on the differences that typically exist, then I would estimate that unemployment Conway right now is about 8.9, or as of May, unemployment was 8.9%. So, we've seen it increase for sure. And all of us have seen that maybe impact our businesses some, or businesses that we know. So we've seen some increases there. And the way that the Bureau of Labor measures that, it looks at 16-year-olds who don't have a job but are available for work and looking for a job. But certainly have seen some increases in unemployment there. Okay. And then the National Consumer Price Index, or the inflation rate, some pretty steady growth, 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. But through the first 5 months of 2020, CPI is down 1.1%, and that's really it's based on the goods and services that we consume. I'll go to the next slide, which helps you understand kind of the breakdown. And for 2019, the only decrease was apparel. The big drivers of that were energy, and also medical care. Those are the ones driving the CPI, the categories driving the CPI increase in 2019. And certainly, as you've noticed at the fuel pumps, gas prices dropped pretty dramatically. And so I'm certain that had an impact on the decrease that we've seen in 2020 thus far. All right, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, one of the key economic indicators of our economy. And, it was interesting. At the end of 2019, we were really seeing some really good performance increases in the Dow. But then on March 23rd, the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped to 18,592. So I know that many of you probably have 401k or other investments that you saw drop off pretty dramatically in the latter part of March. Hopefully, you've seen some good increases in that. The Dow closed at 25,445 yesterday, so it certainly recovered some from the drop off that we saw on March the 23rd, and hopefully you've seen some recovery. If you're in equities, if you have a pretty good asset allocation and you're in stocks and in equities, then you've probably seen a good bit of recovery there. At least I would guess that. But we also have at Conway Corp, just a little bit of a context. We have a defined benefit plan, and of course, we have an asset allocation strategy, and we're probably close to 70% stocks and equities. And so obviously that impacted us in March and April, but we're up 0.6% year to date. So what we lost, we recovered. And so we're pretty excited about that. And hopefully, if you've got investments or 401k, you've seen some increases there. Just one indicator of our economy, and so that recovery has been encouraging for sure. So the population of Conway and Faulkner County, we have seen a good growth there over the years. I moved here myself in the 80s when I went to college, and then apart from just a brief stint in Russellville, have lived in Conway more than anywhere else. And I look back in 1990, that's when I married 30 years ago, and I didn't realize that we had 26,000 people in Conway. To me, it's always seemed like there's been 60,000 people here, but not the case. So you can see what good growth we've had both in our city and in the county. And I think in large part, that's because, this is a great place to live and people want to be here for our educational systems, for employment opportunities, and just, again, a great place to raise a family. So there's been good growth here, and that's a really good indicator for our community. Yes. There is some disparity here between Faulkner County and Arkansas, but it's certainly decreased over the past 9-10 years. You can see in 2009, our birth in Faulkner County, the birth to death ratio was 2.1, and in Arkansas it was 1.4. So when you fast forward to 2018, and that's as current as data as we have, that disparity is closer together. We're at 1.4 and the state is 1.1. So if you've been following, population projections and following our institutions of higher learning and how they predict and what enrollment's going to be, they know that enrollment will be down because there's just going to be fewer people that are going to be going to college. There's just fewer people who are available to go to college. And I don't know the real reason for that. I think maybe some of it has to do with people getting married later, maybe with people starting families later, maybe having fewer kids. I'm not exactly sure, but definitely as we project forward, the population will constrict in our country. and in our state. And so we have to think about that. And as we're planning for the future, and of course at Conway Corp, we have to plan many times 10, 15 years, 20 years down the road as we're planning for infrastructure, and those kind of population projections impact us. And so we have to be contemplating that as we plan for the future. I'm sure you guys do as well. Employment earnings in Faulkner County for 2019, that again is an area where we've seen some growth. And in terms of average annual wages, this is just 1 year, 2019, but they were up 5% over last year. So that's encouraging news as well. Employment, I talked about this a little bit ago, and of course we were looking at it on a national level. This shows how well our unemployment was doing for the in the nation, in our state, in our county, and in our city. And you can see we were at 2.8% in December of 2019. So pretty much anybody who wants a job has a job. And then of course, we had the pandemic, and it dramatically impacted us. And you can see just average annual employment from 2010 to 2019. Conway was at 7.8% back in 2010, and we were at 3% unemployment at the end of 2019. Like I said, at the end of 2019, unemployment was as low as it had been in 50 years. So certainly we're going to have to figure out how what the long-term effects of this pandemic is going to be, and how quick people get back to finding jobs and getting to work. Cost of living comparisons, always a pretty interesting indicator. And it still shows that historically, and compared to a number of other places, Conway is a very affordable place to live. 80.7 is the composite. And so if you look at other places, Bentonville, Fayetteville, Arkansas, 83.4, Jonesboro, Arkansas, 84.2, Little Rock, North Little Rock, 95.6. If you happen to have a family members in Manhattan or New York City, it's 237.4. And so that's it's a very affordable place to live. That's largely driven by groceries, housing, and utilities. But one interesting factor, if you were to buy in New York City or Manhattan in particular, a house that would cost you $269,000 in Conway, it would cost you $2.1 million in Manhattan. In DC, it would cost you $1 million. So I don't understand exactly how they do it. I mean, you've got people performing similar functions, similar jobs, and they have to pay them more in those places. And so to do the same type of job. So I really believe from an economic development perspective, I mean, we are uniquely positioned because from a talent perspective, there are a lot of very talented people. There's a good talent pool here in Conway with the 3 colleges. And I think that if you're thinking about corporate America, they can find, a lot of talented individuals here in Conway and pay them a lot lower wage to get them to do the same kind of work because it's much more affordable to live here. So I'm hopeful that bodes well for us in the future. And as we recover, and maybe you see people who are maybe looking to get out of really, really big cities and move to smaller places like Conway. Hopefully that's some good news for us, and it gives us maybe a competitive advantage as we think about economic development. But it's always nice to live in a place that's affordable to live, and Conway certainly has been for a number of years. Tourism, that has become a bigger and bigger part of our economy, and you can see what the tourism was in Faulkner County in 2019. $140,792,951 and so that's a pretty significant part of our economy, and it's going to suffer in 2020. There's no doubt about that. I'll talk about hotel sales and restaurant sales here in a few slides, but the economy, the tourism aspect of our economy is going to suffer. And when you miss periods of time to have baseball tournaments or basketball tournaments or volleyball tournaments or soccer tournaments. You won't. There's only so many days in the year, and so I think it's real difficult to ever make that up. I mean, you're seeing baseball parks open back up and those kind of things, and of course you're seeing surges in positive cases as well. So I think they're going to make some of that up, but it's going to be real difficult. When we look at I'll be interested to see what the 2020 tourism looks like, but I think it'll suffer all across the state and in Conway as well. All right, so a couple statistics on crime, violent crime and property crime, and this is the number of crimes per thousand in cities whose population is greater than 50,000 or greater. And so you can see how we kind of stack up against other cities across the state of Arkansas. So for those of us who live here, we know that again it's a great place to live and relatively low crime, both in terms of violent crime and then also property crime as well. You can see Conway, actually there's a downward trend in property crime, and so that's encouraging news. For those of us who live here, and I think we all know that intuitively, but it's nice to have a comparison to other cities close to us. Property tax assessment, real estate sales in 2019, those have remained steady over the years, and I've got some slides as well. The next slide I'll just show you is family units constructed, and so 2018 and 2019 were very encouraging. We had seen, as far as new subdivisions platted, we'd seen at Conway Corp some really good growth in those new subdivisions. So a lot of new development in our community, which is a good sign in terms of the growth of our economy. You have to go all the way back to 2010 to see more, and that really was driven by a little bit of an anomaly. There were some multi-family homes that were being developed, or multi-family properties being developed. That was primarily the Greens at Nutter Chapel, and I think they had almost 900 and something units. They were a big part. Well, not 900. There was 961 total, but they were a big part of that 680, and so that was really driving that. And then once that happened, you saw a little bit of decline. But 2018 and 2019 have been encouraging in terms of new development in our community. But I did check thus far. If you look at May year to date, single family home building permits, they're down 25%. So I don't know. I'm sure that to some degree is weather related. We've had a lot of rain this year, but certainly the pandemic has had an impact on that as well. People are just kind of hunkering down, staying home, not looking to do much of anything different. I do know that there were a ton of refinancing as interest rates tapered off. There was a lot of refinancing done as people could save money on interest rates and refinance their home. And so there was a lot of that, a lot of banking activity from that perspective. But anyway, from at the beginning or through May, single family home building permits are down 25%. And so be curious to see what this looks like for 2020. A little bit about Conway Corp. I can talk maybe more intelligently about this than maybe some of the other slides that you have, but you can see pretty consistent revenue growth for us from 2010 through 2020, and our capital expenditures have went up a pretty good bit, and that's largely due to just aging infrastructure. We're responsible for taking care of all the infrastructure that you see and that you don't see, whether it be overhead electric distribution system or underground water and wastewater collection and distribution mains. It's very expensive to take care of that, and certainly coupled with some of the work that the city is doing on streets, which we have greatly needed, but that drives an increase in cost for us, and so we're seeing some of that, and it's impacting our budget. But I think that's good. It's good for Conway. It's good for our community to see that kind of growth. We estimate, and we'll ultimately know when the census is complete, but if you look at when we estimate the number of residential electric meters, and if you look at 2.334 people per meter, and that's really based on the 2010 census. Our population estimate right now is 66,197 for Conway, and so we've tracked pretty closely to that over the years. And so I'll be curious when the 2020 census is complete how close we are. But I mean, good growth here. I will say that 2020, the first row that you're looking at there is budgeted numbers. We have seen decreases in our electric load, and also water consumption. Our electric sales were down 18% in May. They're down 6.2% year to date. Water sales are down 11% in May, and are down Water sales are down 11% in May and are down 1.8% year to date. And we really won't know the impact of that until after the summer. We did have some of one of our large industrial customers who shut down for a couple of months, and in the months outside of residential electric cooling, it provides a big part of about 10% of our load, and so that certainly had impacted us in terms of electric load. And so I don't know what that's ultimately going to look like, but we do think that we could be off our electric sales or electric load could be off 10% by the end of the year. So anyway, we're still following that, and it's just tough to tell. Who knows what the summer will bring, and so much of it is dictated by weather. If you have a hot, dry summer, it impacts primarily residential customers as they're running their air conditioner more and irrigating more. But I will tell you, overall, per capita consumption for residential customers has decreased over the years as energy efficient appliances have been installed and energy efficiency precautions have been taking place, whether it be insulation or storm windows. The typical residential customer does not use as much electricity and does not use as much water. And just in the long term, we don't expect and see a lot of load growth. We expect it to be relatively flat, unless, of course, we have a big industry that comes to Conway. We're hopeful for that. But apart from those kind of changes, we don't expect a lot of load growth in our community and even across the country like we used to see in previous years. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. Sales tax receipts, a really interesting statistic, especially for our city government. And you can see that there had been really good growth, both in the county and in the city over the past few years. So what's happened thus far? I did have a chance this morning to talk to Tyler Winningham. He's the CFO for the city of Conway. And of course, they're tracking this pretty closely because it has a direct impact on their city budget. And some encouraging news from Tyler. April sales tax for the city of Conway was up 11%. May was up 3%. June was down 10%. And year to date, they're still up 4%. Now, the city doesn't, oftentimes what they get remitted back to them from the state is 60 days after the spending takes place. So really, June sales tax is based on April spending. And so Tyler was very optimistic about the impact overall. I mean, I think that, there's an expectation that sales tax will be down, but maybe not to the extent that maybe we expected earlier. Arkansas Business looked at a few cities on June the 15th, and they interviewed about 7 cities. And just to give you some perspective, one of the cities they talked to was North Little Rock, and the city of North Little Rock expected their general fund budget to be down about 3% or $2.4 million. And that was the general fund budget. They didn't talk about sales tax. The city of Fayetteville was just unsure. They had really no projection. And of course, so much of their economy is driven by the University of Arkansas. And that, of course, has been impacted as they sent students home and professors home. They had a pretty dramatic impact. So certainly your economy can have an impact, or what makes up your economy can have an impact on your local sales tax. The city of Fort Smith, very early on, projected that sales tax would be off 22%. they haven't changed their projections. In that article, they didn't think that it would be that bad, but certainly there's some different and varying opinions across the state. But in Conway in particular, things are looking pretty good with sales tax as we look at April, May, and June, and of course the year to date numbers. And so you can see the estimated retail sales for 2019. Conway was 1.6 million, and you can see the other municipalities what makes that up. So the total estimated retail sales for 2019 was $2,057,390,204, and of course almost 82% of that is in Conway. So again, it'll be real interesting to see what that looks like when we wrap up 2020. I do know that the city is a beneficiary. For a period of time, internet sales were not taxed. The local municipalities didn't benefit from that. Now they do, so that helps us out. And so if you drove by Lowe's in the spring, sometimes you couldn't find a parking spot there as people were doing a lot of home improvement projects. And so while some industries have benefited and seen really good increases, others have suffered. But overall, I think our county and our city is doing pretty well in terms of retail sales, relatively speaking, anyway. I alluded to this a little bit ago when I was talking about tourism. So hotel sales were up since 2015. At the end of 2019, we saw really good growth in hotel sales, but this industry has been impacted dramatically. And year to date, May, hotel sales were down 22.2%. And that's just really hard to ever make up because there's only so many days for travel. And people are still traveling. And in fact, if you look at our state and our community, the things that prevented people from traveling with increases in virus cases, they're up. I mean, we look probably as bad as we've looked since we began tracking this. So I don't see us ever, being able to make this up. And so, I mean, I'm just estimating this, but at the year end, hotel sales could be 14.7 to 15.7 million. So it could be down pretty dramatically. If we never make up that 22%, then hotel sales could be down by that amount at the end of the year. And the same is true of restaurant sales. At the end of 2019, restaurant sales in millions were 2.8 million, almost 2.9 million, with good growth over the past few years. They're down through May year to date at 9%. And so if you just kind of extrapolate forward to the end of the year, I mean, what we could be looking at is restaurant sales at the end of the year, 191 million to 195 million. So they could be down lower than what they were for 2018. So we'll just see. And again, that's Brett Carroll's estimate. It's not real scientific, but it's just kind of an estimate of what it could be at the end of the year. Bank deposits, always an interesting factor for Conway, a very strong banking network in our community. And you can see how deposits have grown over the years, 2.23 billion at the end of 2019. And again, another on the next slide, an interesting factor is always bank market share. And so you can see Centennial Bank has almost 40% of the bank deposits in Faulkner County. First Security Bank, 24% roughly. Regions Bank, 6.6%. Arvest, 6.3%. And Simmons Bank, 5.5%. And then other institutions, 17.8%. So the top 5 banking institutions hold a little over 82% of the market share in terms of bank deposits. I mean, I will say this, you see a lot of advertisements for online loans and things like that, but I believe community banks are an invaluable part of our local economy. And just for me personally, we recently bought a different house in Conway. We moved after being in one spot for 30 years, and just having a local banker to talk to about that process and being able to do business over the phone was just made life easier for me. And we have a lot of banks in Conway that can do that. So I'm a big fan of our community banks, and they make a difference. They make a difference in our community, in our economy. Okay, Arkansas scholarship lottery sales. You can see they were down a little bit in 2019 over 2018. The total, an interesting, I think, fact is the total lottery sales since inception 2000 and 2009, $4,701,391,785. So, a big impact on our economy in terms of providing education for students that might not have had it otherwise. And so I want to go. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. I want to go back to that just to let you know what things have looked like in 2020. So the 2019 monthly average for lottery sales was 41.3 million per month in the state of Arkansas. 41.3 million per month on average. Well, the average through May for 2020 was 48.2 million per month. 48.2 million per month. May alone was 60.8 million. So big increases in Arkansas scholarship lottery sales. And so the next slide shows what that looked like in 2019 for the municipalities in Faulkner County. A total of 17.3 million, the majority of that being in Conway, but strong lottery sales in Greenbrier, Mayflower, Valonia, Worcester, Mount Vernon, and Enola. And so I will say this, there were record monthly sales, lottery sales in April and May for Faulkner County and the state in 2020. And I don't know exactly how to attribute that. If you just speculate, you had people who were getting, stimulus money and were getting it. And so my guess is that a number of them used some of that money on lottery sales. And I guess they figure, somebody's got to win it. And the only way to get a chance to win it is to be in play. And so there were people who certainly got involved in that. And there were record sales in April and May for Faulkner County and for the state of Arkansas. The last slide is a new slide. And, there, of course, a new industry in the state, medical marijuana sales. And you can see in 2019, there were a total of 14 dispensaries. 2020, there were 22. And so the total pounds sold in 2019 were 4,209. And then 2020, more than doubled to 10,504. And the estimated sales in those respective years were 28,130,000, and in 2020, 63,880,000. So pretty dramatic increases there. And what that equates to is almost, between $6,700 and $6,000 per pound. So, I don't know what it was on the black market, but certainly that seems like a lot to me. And so I think it's certainly a new industry for Arkansas. And I don't know what I don't know what this turns into or becomes, but I thought it was interesting to me. And I thought that you guys would be interested in seeing what's happened in our state, in our community. There's only one dispensary so far in Faulkner County, but I mean, $6,000 to $7,000 a pound seems like a lot of money to me. But anyway, it's taking place, and it will only grow. That is all that I had. I zipped through these slides. I'll stop sharing, and if any of you guys have questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
And the marijuana sales, is there an idea of what the tax revenue is off of that?
Let me look, Ed. It may be in the full report here. Just a second.
And did you ever think you'd be able to buy marijuana before alcohol in Conway?
No, I never thought that. So it says state, county, and local sales tax revenue, as well as a 4% privilege tax is levied on the revenue generated. I don't have a tax figure for that, Ed, but it'll matter for sure. And honestly, I know that there's other places that are being considered across the state. I know one of the places that are being considered is a place that my parents are from Eastern Arkansas, and back in the 50s they got out of there because there just wasn't much job opportunity. And my dad's specifically from Cotton Plant, Arkansas. And I know that's one of the places they're talking about either having a not a dispenser, but maybe a place where they're growing it. And if you're going to have it, I mean, there are places like that where it provides job opportunities for people. So, it's going to help some people out, I think.
Brett,
Yes, sir.
on multifamily, you know what's happening over there at the Fountain Blue over at where the old airport is? It looks like that's been abandoned, or at least standstill.
Yeah, Ed might be able to talk more about that than me. I will tell you, and that is the development that John Burkhalter is doing. And I think the holdup there, Roger, as I understand it, is a number of the furnishings that, I mean, the condos or apartments themselves are pretty much finished, but a lot of the furnishings that are required for inside, the fixtures, the furniture, he's importing those things, and they just got delayed with the pandemic. And so, as I understand it, all of the fixtures and the furnishings are on the boat being shipped to the States. And so we expect to see that pick back up, in the next few months. But I don't think, I think it was on hold, but more for that reason as opposed to anything else. It's not like he said, wait a minute, I don't want to do that. He's just waiting for furniture, fixtures, those kind of things, so he can finish them out.
My other question is your capital expenditures for Conway Court.
Yeah.
Does that include what the developers spend in developing a subdivision?
No, that's a good question, Roger. That is just capital expenditures that are funded from our rates.
Okay.
That's all they are. That's not developer funded projects, nor is it capital expenditures that we make from bond issues. It's just really capital expenditures that come from our rates. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Brett,
Yes.
I just wanted to compliment you. Great report, and you made it very relevant.
Okay.
Will you be able to share a PowerPoint with us?
I will. And the full report, Roger, the full report's going to be on the Pulse of Conway website. Is that correct?
I don't know that.
Yeah, we'll put that. Sure. we plan to put that out there, but absolutely, I can share these slides with you. You bet.
Thank you. I would appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet.
Do you have printed copies available?
Sir?
You have printed copies available?
We will have some. We don't have them. I've got one right here, but we can make as many as anybody wants.
Well, I want to put a couple in the archives at UCA.
You bet.
Of course, the Chamber of Commerce wants some.
You bet. If anybody wants some, just let me know, and I'll be happy to get you. We'll probably do 100 anyway. But if anybody else wants one, let me know, and I'll make sure you get a copy.
If you email that to me, I can get it on the Rotary website.
Okay, I'll do that, Ed. I sure will.
Hey, Brett.
Yes, sir.
Could you talk about what Conway Corp's doing with solar and renewable?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, I'm excited about that, Greg. We recently announced there are a couple of things going on. One is a pretty small. It's 1 megawatt. It's out at the former landfill that's taking place. We've already completed that project, but I guess on a much bigger scale, we recently signed a long-term purchase power agreement for 95 megawatts. It's a really big solar development. It's not in Conway specifically. It's actually about 45 minutes to the east of us, close to Searcy. And so it will provide and it won't come online until December of 2022, but it'll provide about 23% of our load when that happens. So it's a big deal, and it kind of got lost. We had an announcement about it, but with all of the news that's taking place, all of the local current events, and it kind of got lost in the shuffle. We plan to have a bigger announcement about that, but it's that's enough renewable energy I think, to power about 22,000 homes. So it's a pretty big development. I appreciate you asking about that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm. Anyone else?
Okay, well, Brett, thank you for talking to us today and
Yes,
sharing
ma'am.
the economic report. We appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, I would just say this. Let me finish, and I'll be quiet. But Roger always did a good job of coming up with a theme for each year. I don't really have one this year, but I would say this about our community. I mean, I am bullish on Conway. I think when you look at we have a strong city government. We have a robust, strong healthcare system. We have got a really strong banking and financial network. We've got institutions of higher learning. We've got a diverse economy. We are as well positioned as any community, I believe, in our state and in our region to weather this storm. And so I'm optimistic, but I really think again, when we're better positioned than most to get through this, and so I'm encouraged by that. So I don't have a theme, but from my research and looking at the numbers, that's what I believe. So I just wanted to mention that.
Right, you did a good job, very good job, and I didn't know how this was going to go on Zoom, but it went very well.
Oh, thank you.
I think one thing in Conway, over the years, and including now, we've had good leadership, both in government, Conway Corporation, our universities, and that good leadership, I think, has just been so part of our fabric, and it shows.
For joining today to listen to the economic report. Next week, Lee Francis is going to talk. He's the commissioner of what's now the Rotary Youth Football League. As you know, we've taken that over from the Optimist Club. So come in, listen in next week, hear about the things that our club is hoping to do with this upcoming season, hear about how you can help, because we're going to need all of you to help. And I'm excited about what's going to happen over this next year. So thanks everyone for being here, and we'll see you next week.